forget. I thought I'd just start with a little kind of bit of context for this session, because I used to work in big, complicated organizations, just like the people online, people like Alicia, Tracy, Jingyi, and so on. And I worked my way up the corporate ladder. I was a junior brand manager, then a brand manager, and I became finally a marketing manager with a team of people working for me. And I felt great because, hey, I had an office and a team of reports. And in my naivety, I booked an appointment with human resources and sat down with them, and I said, look, I've never been the kind of manager of a team before. How do you do it? What's the process? And I remember vividly the woman who's our HR manager looking at me with horror and going, well, the reason we've promoted you is because you obviously will do a great job, and good luck. And that was my induction into the world of leadership. That was it. And I made a big mistake because I assumed, having worked my way up by being a technical expert, knowing brand management, knowing about markets and insights, all those things that marketing people know about, all I had to do was continue doing that. So I ran the team by dishing out instructions. Do this, do that, make sure you do the other. And needless to say, it didn't work well, because the people in my team had their own ideas. And sometimes they weren't the same as my ideas. And it made things really awkward, because I had a bit of muscle in that authority I had as the team leader. But they felt they knew more about it, or they'd researched something differently. And there was no easy way of resolving when we had different ideas. Basically, I thought they were being stupid. I got to where they should do as I was told. Not a good leadership formula. And then I discovered this magic word, facilitation. Let me tell you a bit about how I share the news about facilitation. It's one of a suite of training courses I run these days. There's the facilitation's that one about that level, me doing this. I do storytelling, feedback, how to give and receive feedback, how to run workshops, how to be creative in the workplace, and also how to present online. So if you think I'm doing a good job of presenting online, you'll want to come to that gig. If you think I'm doing a rubbish job, you probably won't. So that is what I do these days. And when I'm not doing that, I'm a podcaster. Please tune into the Common Creative Podcast. There it is down the bottom. A weekly show designed to lift the lid on creativity and how to use creativity in the workplace. That's a bit about me. But Facilitation for Leaders is my fastest growing program. And I think it struck a chord because so many people are struggling to make things happen in the post-COVID world when we work remotely, and we all have our own ideas and opinions. Let me ask everyone online a question right away. When I say the word facilitation, what word comes to mind for you? What do you associate it with? I'll give you an example. I think the word facilitation sounds a bit soft. It's kind of, they're a bit soppy. They agree with everyone the whole time. And that's what kind of word that comes to mind for me. But what word comes to mind for you? Pop something in the chat. What word comes to mind when I say the word facilitation? Anybody want to kick me off? Anybody done lots of facilitation? Give a voice of experience. If you don't feel like typing, just shout it out. It's a small enough group right now. Oh, wonderful. Guiding, empowering, delivering, stimulating. These are all very positive words as well, which is great. Not kind of boring and kind of making meetings longer than they should be. Stimulate, great one, Paul. Facilitation should stimulate. These are wonderfully, and with two people, Alicia and Tracy, both on guiding. Anybody brave enough to take themselves off mute? Just tell us a bit more. I'm fascinated because guiding has come up with twice. Tracy or Alicia, do you want to just tell us a bit more about where that comes from?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think
Thanks,
for me, I was thinking about it's kind of facilitating is you're helping move things along. You're facilitating the conversation or facilitating. So I was like, you're kind of guiding rather than doing necessarily, which I think is, kind of where that guiding word came for me.
Brilliant. I think, yes, moving things along. It kind of, given that as business people, we're charged with making stuff happen, aren't we? We're solving problems and making stuff happen. So I kind of wonder why we're not facilitators the whole time. Anybody else want to chip in? Empowering people arguments. Felicity, is it about resolving people arguments, or is it what encouraging people arguments? Tell me more about that.
Well, you said one word and I couldn't think of one, so I had to go for two.
No, that's fine.
But because it to me it's about resolve. I suppose it's discussions, but managing a discussion to get to an end point.
Yeah, lovely. I think
So
that's a really good.
I couldn't say that in one word.
Managing a discussion to get to an endpoint. I think I really like that. I'll pop up kind of the way I think of facilitation on this chart here. Actually, before let me explain what we're going to do, how the session is going to run. I'm going to run through how I would define the facilitator's job description, kind of what a facilitator should do and shouldn't do. We've got the facilitator's playbook, some tips and tricks for becoming a great facilitator. And I've got a tool to share with you. It's called APGT. It's the ugliest name for a tool I think I've ever come across. If you can come up with a better name for the tool once I've seen it, or as you've seen it, please let me know. We need a better name for our tool, APGT. I would love it if by the end of this short session, everyone walks away with at least one tool that they want to use. My suggestion would be this one APGT, but there's going to be quite a few that you'll hear. So if you walk away with one tool, for me, that's a big result. I hope you feel it's a big result for you. And lunchtime well spent. Tips, we've covered these with Camille, but please ask questions, please ask notes, please slurp soup, please enjoy the process and absorb as many learnings as you can. That's the kind of plan for the session. Let me come onto that point about what is a facilitator. And I would say a facilitator is a peaceful warrior. It has inside it this tension, which on the one hand, a facilitator encourages consensus, makes things move along, as Felicity said. They get people working together well. That's the peaceful side of it. But they're also a warrior. They have the moments when they battle and they confront people when things aren't going right. And so Hunter Bailey came up with this definition. It's not my own definition, but I love that as a description of somebody who's kind of quietly powerful. I think that's a great way of thinking about a facilitator. And it's different from how we often think of leaders as being dominant and commanding, and certainly men often assume that's how you should lead something, lead from the front. And facilitators kind of lead from the back. I'm going to ask another question now about a facilitator's job description. The word facilitator, by the way, anyone know where it comes from? Anybody know a bit of etymology? Where's this word from? It's a Latin word, in fact. Anyone ever? Any Latin scholars? I'll tell you, it comes from the word facile, which means easy. A facilitator's job is to make things easy. They put oil on the wheels, if you like. So that's how to think about what a facilitator should do. Is if you know what you're trying to achieve, facilitators enable other people to do that. Anybody want to chip in with? I'm going to cover the job description, if you like. I don't, as a principle, enjoy the idea of a job description for anybody, because it's kind of like, a rule book that weighs us down. But it's interesting because what a facilitator does is very different from what a manager does, for example, or what a kind of wartime leader might do. Anybody want to shout out with some things? What should a facilitator do? We've talked about empower. We've talked about concepts like guiding, empowering, people arguments, but those are the high-level concepts. What practically on a day-to-day basis, if you're facilitating a session, what is your job? What do you do? Pop it in the chat if you want, or take yourself off mute. Listen. Wonderful, Felicity. Absolutely, yes. In a way, read the group. What is going on here? Sometimes the question in your mind might be, what's not going on here? Great, nice one. Deliver an outcome. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. Help the group live to a very specific outcome. I think defining the outcome is part of it. Being present. Yeah, I would put that as part of listening. It's kind of being with the group. Almost braille reading what's going on sometimes. Let me flick. I've got a chart on this, which is a kind of summary of the job description. Let me put it up. Here are, what is that, 7 dot points about what a facilitator should do. And I'm going to spend some time on that very first point. Facilitators need to create a safe space. And I mean that physically, if they're going to be physical activities, but I mean it emotionally and psychologically, most of all. And I don't know if any of you have come across this concept of psychological safety. It sounds very very heavy duty. But the principle is this: when people work together, you're challenging them to stick their necks out a bit, do something they haven't done before, share an opinion that might be controversial, to disagree with people when appropriate. It can feel very threatening. So a facilitator's job is to demonstrate that it's safe to collaborate in that way. And if they don't establish that up front, the people in that group are going to shrink back and basically do what they think you expect them to do rather than really what they want to contribute. So the idea of safety is central to facilitating well. People should feel calm, relaxed, and able to be open with what they've got to say. In my mind, it's a lot like an airline pilot, this aspect of it. You're going to get into a metal tube, go 28,000 feet in the air. It's a scary thing to consider. But luckily, there's a pilot at the front who knows exactly what they're doing. They've done it a lot before. And when they come over on the speakers, they say things like, well, we're flying at 28,000 feet and do some bumps after the takeoff, and then we'll serve lunch, and then we'll land in 48 minutes. And you sort of think, this person knows what's going on. I can now sit back, relax, and enjoy this flight because it's a safe space. So that's really central. I won't go in such detail all these points, but any questions on this idea of safety? Have you come across it before? Do you feel like you know what I'm talking about, or am I just going da? I'm getting a nod from Tracy. Tracy, tell me some more. Have you come across this idea of psychological safety at Origin Energy?
Now that the place has been named, I don't think I can be honest. No, no, I think psychological safety is always super important in any aspect, especially after COVID. I don't know why, but I feel like everyone's a little bit PTSDing still. And yeah, so burnout is real. So psychological safety is top for me.
Lovely. Do you have any experience of how, I will cover a tool for building psychological safety, but do you have any experience of how you would signal that this is a safe environment? This is somewhere where it's okay to say what you think?
Yeah, no, that's what I try to instill, just by being me. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no. Okay, be vulnerable, be you, be present. To some extent.
Yes. And to be. I feel like you need to embody what you're saying as well. So you need to be transparent and vulnerable yourself to a point, obviously, if you're at, but yeah, it's just transparency and vulnerability and helping other people feel safe. Lovely.
A lot of psychological safety really came to the fore, I think, when we've got a couple of ANZ people online, but when the Banking Royal Commission started to ask if so many people knew that things were wrong, why did nobody speak up? And the answer was, we didn't feel safe to speak up. We thought if we said this is wrong, we'd basically get fired. It's not a safe environment to say those kind of things. And so it came much, well, let's talk about psychological safety. How do you make people feel safe? I've got a specific tool to start to address that. We're not in 1 hour, we're not going to kind of get it all, but I have got a tool. Let me talk about the rest of this. So the first and most important thing is, this is a safe space where you can share your views, listen to others, and work together. The next thing, I think Paul mentioned this, is to set the goal. To help a group deliver something, you've got to be very clear about what it is they're trying to achieve. So the goal today is to make a decision on project X. The goal today is to walk away with 3 words that define how we're going to work together. A very, very clear goal. And that's hugely empowering for people in a group. They go, oh, good. We know what success looks like today. We know what we're trying to achieve. We know if we're on target. We've got 2 of the words. We need 1 more. or behind target. You know, we've gone off track. Let's get back. The goal, a very clear goal. Third thing is map the process. And I've deliberately not written the word agenda here. We're going to go through some steps as a group. We're going to review a presentation on the latest market data. We're going to chat about it in breakout groups, and then we're going to come up with a set of action points. That's the process we're going to use today. That's the facilitator's job. The group doesn't get to say, oh, we shouldn't do it as breakouts. Let's do this as one group. So facilitate, map the process. And this leans into, I think the point Tracy mentioned about being present. Maintain energy. People are people. There are moments we just flag, we get bored. And so read the group, be present. It feels like we're losing energy here. What can we do? Let's get everyone to stand up and do something. Let's take a break. Something that Camille and I sometimes do when we run training programs together. Camille happens to be a yoga teacher as well as being a facilitator. And so we might do a couple of yoga exercises, or it might be just asking provocative questions. Why is nobody interested in customers of tomorrow? That helps to stimulate energy. Okay. Fourth point, keep everyone involved. A facilitator is watching everyone's eyes. Who's thinking about the shopping? Who's somehow not connected to the group? Who's dominating the group and blocking others out? Facilitator makes a level playing field. By the way, if you're facilitating it online, you need, I don't know where you are, where Camille is on your screen. That's why there's two of us online for this session. Camille's job is to watch the group, because I'm doing what I'm doing, and she helps me understand, hey, Rosie's got a camera off. I wonder if she's still, you know, she's actually helping me maintain contact with the group and jumping in if something needs addressing. So keep everyone involved. And Rosie, thank you so much for that. We got a heart from Rosie. Remember, the people with the loudest voices are not necessarily the people with the biggest brains, you know? and there are sometimes quiet voices that have a lot of exciting stuff to say, and vice versa. My penultimate point is about not just building on feedback, asking for feedback. It's a point that relates to the post-COVID world and working online, and it's to demand feedback. It's to make sure the session is interactive, that the group their contributions are welcomed, that I need to hear from you. It's not just, I hope you'll share something. So when you're online, demand feedback. And you've heard me and Camille say, look, give me one word for this. What does this mean to you? So the idea is everyone feels like they're part of the journey and not spectators to that journey. Last point in job description, then I'm going to ask for you for some comments from you, which is to build consensus. Now, they don't impose consensus. If a group doesn't agree, or there are different factions in a group, that's fine. Maybe it's possible to say, look, sounds like half of us think we should go ahead, and there's another group who thinks it's too early to go ahead and we should pause. That might be the furthest you could go in terms of building consensus. So you don't impose consensus, but where possible, build consensus. It sounds like we're all agreed this is an important topic. It sounds like we have more work to do before everyone gets on board with an action plan. That might be the consensus you'll be able to build. So I've been rattling on a lot about the job description. Anybody want to add anything to that? Anybody got any questions about it, this job description? The reason I'm labouring this is...
Sorry, Chris.
Go, Camille, yeah.
I've got a question while people think
about it. Great.
So we had peaceful warrior, and I was wondering on the job description, what a warrior is someone that's, you know, protecting or fighting against something.
Yes.
So what is a facilitator fighting against or protecting?
That's a lot. Thank you, Camille. I think that the warrior is fighting for an outcome. Having been where I've been, and so many people sitting online, I'm sure you've seen meetings, workshops, sessions in big business that go round in circles, and you feel like I've been here before. I'm turning up because I've been told to turn up, and I know this is going to go nowhere. So the warrior is fighting for progress. What can we agree on? What have we got out of this? but they're peaceful, and I'll come on to this, because they're not imposing their own will. They're saying it's us that's working together, not me. Great question, Camille. Thank you for that. Camille always comes up with new questions for me, so I never get to kind of rehearse, and that was a really good one. Thank you. Who else has got a question? Andrea, you've been very quiet. What question do you have? Nothing. You're breaking up at mine, I'm afraid, Andrea. Just want to say that again?
The text, maybe. I can't hear.
Yeah, maybe go to text if you don't mind. I couldn't hear that, I'm afraid. Anybody else want to jump in with a question? Sumi, Jacqueline, Rosie, you're all got dark screens, and I'm kind of let's hear a question from one of you three if you don't mind. I'm guessing you've got a bowl of soup in your hand or something like that.
Chris, it's Paul. I'm happy to jump in with a question if you've.
Thank you. Yes, please. Great.
So, I mean, I think I really like that idea around building consensus. I think that's really, yeah, it's quite a powerful thought. But how do you get the balance of that right when you're the leader? Because, you know, I just think about the example you used around, okay, it feels like we've got more work to do here before we can reach agreement. I reckon 95% of the meetings I'm in would end that way if we left it there. So as the leader, you know, getting that balance right between facilitating, but also making sure we close things out or move things forward.
Again, a great question, Paul. And I will come on to more of this, but I think the key point to remember is the difference between the boss and the facilitator. The facilitator's job is process, not output. So long as we've gone through the steps, everyone's had their say, everyone's played by the rules, then the facilitator's done their job. If the output isn't there or isn't on brief, that's the group's job. Now, the boss may intervene at this point and say, look, we've got two schools of thought here. Let's go ahead or not go ahead. I've actually got to make a call on this, and I'm going to say we go ahead. Bang. A facilitator could never do that. Now, if you're playing both roles.
That was going to be my question.
Okay,
I
right.
both roles a lot,
So let me prefix that. If you can, you want different people for the two roles. If the boss, a facilitator will often defer to the project owner and say, listen, it sounds like we're at an impasse here. We've got two schools of thought. Alicia, this is your project. How would you like to play this? Shall we assume we're going to go ahead and workshop that? Or would you like to explore this division in opinions further? Alicia says we should go ahead. Okay, that's the guidance we've got. So that's the ideal if you've got two different roles. The other thing I'd say is to be very clear about which role you're playing. This is back to psychological safety, is to say that the group is being very clear that we aren't going ahead or that we're not sure what the risks are. It's great that the group has made its view clear. Watch this. I'm going to take off my hat, but as the boss on this project, I'm very conscious that we have to make a decision. So I'm going to make a call right now, which is we go ahead. But I want the group now to help me understand how to do that or something. So you're very actively, very overtly changing your role and say, I'm being the boss now. I'm going to say, this is where we stand. Typically, you'd make sure that the group is only working within the scope that you want. So the leader might well say, look, I have made a call. We're going to go ahead with this project. The role of this session is to understand how best to do that. So I don't want to talk about yes or no. I want to talk about how. Is everyone okay with that? You see, so you don't, and if it goes off track, I don't think we should do this project in the first place. That's fine, but it's not what we're talking about. Yeah. You can, in big workshops, you can actually physically use a different space. So, this part of the room, I'm a facilitator. That part of the room, I'm the project owner. And it's very clear what role you're playing. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Alicia. Thanks for that, Paul. Listen, I'm going to rattle on with just some tips and tricks for when you're facilitating, when you're in the moment. So I haven't got time to cover them all, but I hope this will give you a nice little checklist to work to if you're facilitating a session. And then I'll finish this short session with that little tool, APGT, which I'm hoping you can all use in your next session. So here's the first one. You do not exist. If you're facilitating, it's not about you. It's about the group. Your job is process, not output. And I've written this provocatively to help you remember it. Think of yourself as a servant to the group rather than the leader of the group. Your ideas, your opinions do not exist. If the question is, how do we implement this project? And somebody says, let's get the whole company to work on it tomorrow. Inside you're thinking, we would never do that. That's a rubbish idea. Outside, that's on brief. I did ask that question. You have given me a valid answer. That's really helpful. Thank you for helping me with that. What else do we think? What else do we think? So your ideas, your opinions do not exist. If possible, they come from, say, a subject matter expert. Here's a person to present on how to make great projects happen. Or if it has to be you, I'm going to do the presentation of content, and then I'm going to take that hat off, and I'm going to become that facilitator, that independent, peaceful warrior. Your ideas.
Like, you know, when there's a board meeting and there's the person that does the minutes?
Yes. That's a great way of thinking about it. It is kind of, I'm concerned, has everyone spoken? Are we on topic? Have we drifted off topic? Are we listening to each other? Are we moving towards the goal? Do I agree with this output? And I put that up first because it's a real challenge. If you've built your career by knowing the answer, which is what I did, I'm used to existing in a big way. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. I've done the work here. I know what I'm talking about. Facilitators, you do not exist. You're a servant to the group. Yeah, kind of taking the minutes. You have the right to intervene if things go off track, which is, you remember we're talking about how to do this project. This conversation is about whether to do it. So I'm going to put pause here. Let's get back on how to make this happen, not whether. That's when you can intervene. Let me flick on to the next one, which is to provoke. I think one of the words people said is to stimulate groups. It's very helpful for facilitators to notice, wonder, and inquire. This is about listening. It's about being present, which are words that you put up at the beginning of this session. So it may be something about the group itself. I noticed that nobody's taking any notes. Now, why is that? Oh, it's because my pen's run out. Or it could be nobody's said anything interesting yet. I noticed about the group. But it could be about the way conversations are structured. I notice no one's mentioned current customers. Why is that? Are they not important, or have we overlooked it? I notice everyone's got their heads in their hands. Do we need a break? So questions which will make the group go, oh, that's a good question. That gets me thinking. Notice, wonder, and inquire. Be careful here not to do leading questions. I noticed nobody said, let's proceed with this project yet, if that's what you want them to do. Watch out for leading the group. If the group thinks for a moment you've got a hidden agenda, they'll switch off and they'll go, why did you call this meeting? If you already know what the answer is, I have no role to play. You've demotivated me. You've misled me. I ain't playing anymore. So you've got to be very important, even if you want something desperately to happen, not to reveal that, not to let it out. Any questions on this one? But you do not exist. Notice, wonder, and inquire. Okay, I'll keep going. All right. Here's, I think, a really powerful tip to avoid defensiveness, to keep things safe. When somebody says something, it might be a bit provocative. They might say, I think we should fire the managing director. You might go, how dare you? Why'd you say that? And it's kind of accusatory. And the person is going to shrink at that point. You've undermined that feeling of safety. So instead, what's the story behind that? How would we make that happen? ask people to open up rather than to defend what they say. So it's about building. It's an interesting point of view. How would you express that to the HR team? So I'll tell you why, because this and the other. Brilliant, thank you. That's helped me. Let me check I've understood that correctly. Ask how, ask what, avoid asking why. And again, if anybody here is a marketer, I know Paul's a marketer, that's where I built my career. You're trained to ask why a lot, particularly to get insights. And this is a moment where it's worth avoiding that word. Jin Yi's nodding as well, another marketer online. Watch out for the word why. Okay, a couple more of these to go. This is a really powerful one. Say we. Remember, as a facilitator, you're a servant to the group. You're speaking on behalf of the group. You're not that boss imposing your will on the group. Feels like we need a break. What do you think about that? Sounds like we're saying that this project is too risky. Is that fair? We. There's a place that groups go to sometimes when people lock horns. It's called storming. When somebody says, I just want to say, I don't think we should have had this meeting in the first place. That kind of question. It's called storming. And even when the group does that, and as a facilitator, you're shaking inside going, now what do I do? You toss it back to the group. It sounds as though we're stuck here. We're not even sure if this meeting should have happened. How do we want to progress? We. Not, I've decided this meeting's happening. Have you? Well, I haven't. See? Sounds like we should do this. Is that fair? If you get really stuck as a facilitator, I think we should have a break. I think this has got, we've fallen down a hole. Let's have a break. I'm going to chat to the project owner. I'm going to have a think about what to do. Is that okay if we have 5 minutes break? We. Not me. And last one, very important. Again, this all ladders up to psychological safety. Celebrate all contributions. I think it's a typing mistake on your chart there. Thank you for that. That's really helpful. You know, things go wrong. If there's a typing mistake inside, you might be thinking, is that all you've got? I've spent hours on this chart, and all you can tell me is there's a typing mistake. Thank you. No, to make sure that everybody feels safe, celebrate that. Thank you for that. I'm pleased you said it, because that act signals to everyone else that their contributions will be welcome too. Somebody may be sitting quietly thinking, nobody's talked about the financial aspects of this project. Do I dare say? And by saying thank you for that about the typing mistake, that other person might go, actually, I want to say about the financials here. Oh, this is really important. Are you with me? Celebrate all contributions. You don't have to agree with them, but you should celebrate them. And that might mean thanking the person for it. It might mean popping it up on a chart. Let me just pop that down. Did I hear you right? There's a typo on page 4. Thank you. Got that from celebrate all contributions. So those are our 5 bits of the playbook. I've got this tool to cover, but what are your questions about this? What about you do not exist? What about notice, wonder, inquire? What about ask how or what, but not why? Say we, because you're working for the group, and of course, celebrate all contributions. Who has a question for me? I want to hear one, or I'm going to put somebody on the spot. Rosie, it's going to be you, by the way, to ask a question. Anybody want to jump in? Rosie's.
I'm happy to, unless Rosie wants to first.
Great to you. Thanks.
Chris, I thought that was really helpful just to kind of crystallize kind of some of the key kind of concepts. I think in my personal experience in corporate, and I work in marketing, as you mentioned, facilitating sessions, often it's hard to duplicate that being independent, forming a group and then trying to facilitate outcomes. So I think that's probably just my question around how do you have any tips or advice around how do we maintain independence while you're very much a key person in the team with these people that you work with?
A great question. Thank you for that. Because on the one hand, marketing's charged with, lead the business, drive the growth, tell us what to do, show us the future, you tell us. And then I'm saying, oh, you mustn't have an opinion. You are invisible. You do not exist. It's all in the way you shape the objectives. By the way, the APGT tool, which I'm going to come on to, covers that. But the point is that you might say, this session is about gathering your feedback to my proposal. I'm going to share with you a plan to launch a new service. I want everyone to give me one bit of feedback. And when we've got all the feedback, we're going to work together to agree the top 3 problems that I need to solve as we move forward. So we're talking about gathering your feedback rather than whether you do the project, for example. It may be building insights. We've got consumer data. I want people to work together to deliver at least 3 insights from this session. An insight looks like this, by the way. And so if it doesn't look like this when we come out, we're off topic. I don't want to talk about budgets, don't want to talk about times, I want to talk about insights. So it's the way you define what the conversation is about. And if somebody says this is going to be too expensive, you have the right, as a go, no, that's not on topic. I said we're talking insights, not budgets today. Did you hear me? Great question. Frame the conversation around the topic that you want their input in. And you have to be sincere, by the way. If it's a question you don't want them to answer, don't ask it. It's I need your feedback. I need your help. I need your support. It's dangerous to sort of use a group to sell in something that's already agreed. Because they might say no, and then you're in trouble. Great question, Jingy. Any other questions about that? My theory is that facilitation is a difficult skill for managers because you get there without facilitation skills. You get there by being technical experts, and nobody tells you what it's like to work with a group and how to get things from other people. Would you agree with that? Well, certainly that was my experience. Let me jump ahead now. Oh, Felicity, thank you. Hand up.
Chris, you said that there were 5 points. I just wanted to double check that I got them.
Oh, crumbs. Thank you for that. Let's check we got it.
So, okay,
Let's count them up and maybe 4.
Well, the first one I got was
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do not exist.
You do not exist.
Let's see. 1, 2. Notice, wonder, and inquire.
Ah, that's the one I missed.
Thank you. Good. You had me by heart. I was thinking I can't count to 5. There's probably only got 4.
Thank you.
It's a great idea, by the way, just to kind of rehearse these in your mind, just perhaps in the bathroom mirror. If somebody say something controversial to yourself, don't go to work today and then go, oh, what's the story behind that? I'd love to hear more. Notice, wonder, inquire. What are we going to do then? Shall we go to work? Just practice saying those little phrases to yourself. They matter. They really help groups to feel confident and calm. But if you want a nice word to impress your mates, psychodynamic is the word. A psychodynamic group feels safe. It works well as a team. It solves problems almost without thinking. People just know what the vibe is in the group. Psychodynamic. Right, let me talk about this little tool. I call it a shaping tool. You've actually already seen me use it today. It's my mnemonic for it is APGT, and it stands for aim, plan, goals, and tips. And it's a way of shaping a session up front. And this is my version of an agenda, if you like. Typically, a session starts with an agenda, which goes, we'll have a presentation, coffee's then, there'll be more presentation, and we'll finish at 1 p.m. or something. It's process. I think for a group to work well, for facilitators to thrive, is a much bigger task. And you need to answer these 4 questions. The first is, what's the big idea behind this session? What's the inspiring vision? My aim is to give everyone confidence in the power of facilitation. A big idea. Oh, good. We're in the right place then. That's exactly what we want. And that applies to every single session, whether you're updating the budgets, reviewing the expenses procedure, whatever nitty-gritty thing you might think you're doing, you need to find the big idea to make people think, good, I'm pleased I'm here. The plan is also known as your agenda. I deliberately avoid that word because all agendas are boring by definition. You know, it's just, oh, the agenda. A plan sounds more interesting. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then finally we're going to achieve this. Plans, by the way, are always top line. You may have your own detailed agenda, which you use to guide you minute by minute. Your team don't need to know that detailed agenda. In fact, if you show them the agenda minute by minute, they'll know when you go off track and they'll get worried. So don't tell them. So imagine a pilot's flight plan. It'd be the same thing. There's all sorts of information that pilot's using about the altitude, the speed, the course, the weather, and so on, that you don't need to know about. We'll be landing at 1:30. There'll be some bumps on the way. It's all you need to know. Goals, really important, almost always overlooked, which is the specific outcomes that this group will achieve before the session closes. And this has two benefits. The first is it directs the group about why they're there. We're going to walk away with 3 action points about the project. How to make it happen, what are the risks, what are the opportunities? 3 action points. Our goal is to come up with 50 new product ideas for this brand. By the end of the session, that wall will be covered with those ideas. Very specific, measurable goals. If you haven't got those specific, measurable goals, no one will know quite how to contribute to the session. So it helps shape the group to contribute. But it has a lovely little benefit. This is a secret one. When things go off track, which they sometimes do, you go back to it and go, this is not helping us with those 50 ideas that we said we needed. If we're talking about why the marketing department is structured this way, it doesn't give us the 50 ideas. Let's get back to those 50 ideas. And if you need to, because no one's leaving today till we've got those 50 ideas. Do you want to work late tonight? Good. Yeah. Goals. It keeps the it's like a stick you can beat the group with. Glad I got a big grin from Alicia there. Thank you for that. So it's a stick and a carrot. And the last one, again, almost always missed. It says tips. Your tips on having a successful project. You heard Camille say, here's some tips, ask questions, make notes, and so on and so on. The subtext for that is rules of play. These are the rules I want this group to work with today. Tell people how to behave. And in that sense, that you're being like a school teacher. These are the behaviors I need from you today. I want you to be playful. I want you to be creative. I want you to ask questions. Or I need you to sit and listen and hold your questions to the end. I need your best commercial brains because the issue we're dealing with is finance. Tell people how to behave. And also, if they stop using those behaviors, you pick them up on it. I said I wanted questions from you. Why has nobody asked me a question yet? Blah, 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 blah. That's very important leadership. Tips, you call it tips to make it sound light. It's actually very important. It's really called rules of play. Let me bring it to life. Aim is the big idea. You're being an inspirational leader. You're saying, follow me to this wonderful place. Plan is your run sheet in headline terms. Goals are specific. Well done. We said we wanted 15 ideas. We've got 17. We are ahead of target. This is a brilliant session. It's exactly what we needed. Now we're all feeling good about ourselves. Tips. Ask questions. Make notes. Feel free to slurp your soup. That's what I want today. Tomorrow it might be commercial. Use case studies where we've made a profit. Whatever it is you want. So for this session, this is what we actually did at the beginning of today. Aim was to build confidence. Plan, we've got 4 steps: the intro, the playbook, the APGT tool, and we'll finish with Q&A. Goals, as I said, I'd love it if everyone walks away with at least 1 tool. And you can tell me, shortly, have I got 1 tool I can use or not? We know whether we got a tick or a cross. And tips, as I said, that's how the APG tool works. The thing about this tool is that all ladders up to safety. This person, the facilitator, knows what they're doing. I feel safe to contribute. I know what behaviors to deliver. I know how to deliver against those expectations the facilitator has set. I can relax now and be me and share my ideas and thoughts. And so that APGT tool really helps with that. I've got 2 questions about that. Firstly, what do you think of it? And secondly, has anybody got a better name for it? Because I really don't like APGT. I've got my three most smiling faces at the bottom. Tracy, Rosie, and Alicia. You're grinning the most. I'm hoping you can give me some
I don't have any
creative
ideas for you yet, Chris. I'll work on it and come back to you. I think it's great. Like we use for our meeting structure at Kellogg's, we use posts, so purpose, objective, structure, and time. But it still feels very dry and corporate.
Yes.
Right? Whereas I think yours is kind of it's a bit more aspirational and kind of I think gives people more freedom than kind of this more agenda-like process. So I would love to see us move towards something like this. And also people don't use it all the time. It's meant to be, you're not meant to accept a meeting unless it's got post in the meeting invite. But meetings still come through without that in there. So we're not very good at holding ourselves accountable for it.
If I can jump in, I mean, there may be moments where you don't write it up. Particularly the aim. I mean, the big idea, if you go, our purpose is to reinvent the way we work together, you're going, really? But you might say, look, here's the run sheet for the session. By the end, I hope we'll walk away with one action point. That's what we're trying to do. When you're verbally introducing the session, you might say, listen, this is an opportunity for us all to redefine the way we work together. That's, I think, the heart of what we're doing. So by the end, I want us to walk away with a da-da-da. So you kind of, I think maybe introducing it verbally is much more powerful. And I think the difference between a structure like post and what I've been talking about is recognizing that we're all human beings. And I'm in doing the aim plan goal, I'm both being businesslike and structured, but also tugging the heartstrings a bit. Those things. Post and when I read them, I must admit, I just see handcuffs. Like, oh dear. But they're always with good intention. Somebody somewhere would have said, I'm fed up with these boring meetings. Let's get something better.
And Chris, my favorite part is tips, because if you do tips at the start, then you don't have to later on be rude to someone. You know, if you say everyone mobile's on silent, you know, or whatever, and then you don't have to be like, oh, Camille, can you not take that call? Like, it's just so nice to do tips at the start when you're not criticizing anyone. So then later on at the end of the day, it doesn't go haywire. I really like tips at the start.
Beautiful. Thanks for that. And it's, by the way, demand feedback. So even up front, you say, tips, if you'd all turn your phones off, make notes, and make sure you ask lots of questions. Is everyone all right with that? I'm asking for feedback now. Has anybody got a call they're going to have to make mid-meeting? Is everybody okay? Because when somebody starts going on their phone, you go, I thought you said you were okay with that. And you get right then to say, no, you're not playing by the rules anymore. So is everyone okay? Because sometimes phones do go off in these sessions. Is that okay? And I'm setting up, don't you cross me? And so it's the warrior side of facilitation coming out there. Nice one, Camille. Any other questions? Andrea, we couldn't hear you. Did you get a chance to pop in the chat box anything that you wanted to raise?
No, I didn't. But what I was saying is that what you're trying to get from everyone is buy-in for everyone to feel engaged and play a role in the meeting. So it's that, I call it buy-in.
Thank you for that. That's exactly right. Everyone's voice has been listened to and they've been heard, even if in the end the group has decided what they've said isn't going to be incorporated. You listened to me, you understood what I was talking about, and we've balanced it, we thought about it, but actually we're going to go, okay, fair enough, but at least you listened to me. Buy-in. It's a great way of putting it. It's very powerful, almost a sales technique. To Jingyi's point, if you've got a big project that you need to kind of push through the organization, rather than presenting at people, you might set up a session, a facilitated session, to discuss it. And that way, by the end, they go, oh, that's quite a good idea, actually. I've given some feedback in the session, but I've had a chance to process it without it being forced on me. Nice point. Nice point. Jacqueline, I don't think we've heard from you. You've got your camera off. If you're there, love to hear any questions you might have. Maybe not there. Sumi, are you still there? You got your cameras off. That's why I'm picking on you at the bottom of my screen. Maybe it's lunch that's got in the way. One of the questions I get asked a lot is about storming, when things go off track. Have you had this happen to you? If so, any experiences? I'd love to hear about it and what you've done about it. Tracy's giving me a nod. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
I actually just stopped the meeting. I knew it was not going to get anywhere, so I just kind of stopped the meeting and took the person that raised it aside and had a chat with them just to get their sort of input, and then recalibrate. That
very powerful, very valid solution. If things are just, look, we don't want to talk about this topic at all, it's fine. Stop the meeting. It's not the right moment to talk about that. Great. Yeah, don't waste everybody's time. I think it's a really good one. A couple of things that you can do if you're worried things might go off track. Firstly is the kind of stakeholder management. If there's a senior stakeholder or a powerful stakeholder that you're worried, you might have a quick pre-meet and say, look, we're going to talk about implementation. I know you're passionate about budgets. That's not what this meeting's about. Is that okay? You know, do you covering them off, the politics? In the session, be very clear about the objectives. I know we've had lots of chat about finances on this project. Everyone's passionate about that subject, which is great. Today is not about that, though. It's about implement. So you're signaling the kind of conversation you have, and then you might lean that into that conversation. So let's just start this conversation about implementation. I'd love to know what you think is the secret of great implementation. Think about a personal project. You know, maybe it's an art project or a cooking project. What makes great implementation? So you're training people now to have the conversation you want. It's about planning and preparation. It's about being flexible. It's about great, really good stuff. And now I've got you down that track now to talk about the topic I want to talk about rather than what you may have in your head. But yeah, do it. But if it just goes wrong, let's take some time out here. Come in.
We've got 4 minutes to go, but we've got one.
Oh, right. Okay.
Jacqueline, she's typed it in.
Thank you.
When she's been running workshops with teams out in the field, she feels being a facilitator is a strength. But in a corporate environment, she gets frustrated and struggles with facilitating. Do you have any ideas or tips?
Brilliant question. I'm guessing, Andrea, based on that kind of if you're a stranger out in the field or less well known to people, they're more obedient because they don't know who this person is, and so they'll be more cautious. But in the office, that we know, Andrea, we don't, or Jacqueline, excuse me, we don't have to worry about her, and I can talk across her or I can contradict her, and it's okay. I imagine that's what's behind it, and the key is all about getting the objectives clear up front. Today we're going to do this, and I'm looking for these behaviors from you. End goal plan tips. There's a step 2, which we won't have time to go to in any depth, but you then do a kind of a practice exercise to check everyone's following your lead. I covered it briefly just then. Let's say you're talking about implementing a project. You might get people practicing the general topic of implementation, say of something simple like a cooking or something personal. So I'm training you. That is my conversation. This is how I want you to contribute. And now we're going to flip to the world of business, the hard work of X, Y, Z. So you're saying, this is the kind of conversation. This is how to contribute. We're going to practice it. Now we're going to do the real conversation. And if people cut across you, you go, no, that's not what we're here to do. I'm stopping you there because you were off track at this point. It's harder if people think they know you. The key is to role play that peaceful warrior up front, get the group playing peaceful followers, if you like, check they're following you, and then and only then get into the tough stuff. Did that help at all, Jacqueline? Pop in a yes, no, or abstain. Oh, great. Thank you, Jacqueline. Listen, we're very, very nearly. Yeah, yes, we're good. So, listen, thank you so much for your questions, for your attention, for the big grins. I really appreciate it. Come here, why don't you talk everyone through? Well, we got a quick bit of feedback just to help us out, if you don't mind.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we'd love to have some feedback because that's how we keep improving improving. So number 1, what would you score it out of 5? 5 being
5,
awesome,
4, 3,
1 being
2.
terrible. Wish I could take that time back of my life. So that's number 1. Number 2, what part did you like the best? And then number 3, what do you want more of, or what could we change? And I'll type it in the chat, and then just write really quick. One word's fine.
A number.
Informal.
What you learned, what we might change next time around.